Hello and welcome everyone yet again to another one-shot video. My name is Ashwin Joglekar and I am from Resonance PCCP division. Today I am here with the chapter Nazism and the Rise of Hitler. Now this chapter is from your history portion, the third chapter of our history portion of class 9th. So let us quickly begin and understand what this chapter has to talk about. Alright. So Nazism and the Rise of Hitler. See, both these terms, that is Nazism and Hitler. Now Nazism was an ideology which was propagated by Hitler. Nazism rose as Hitler rose and Nazism had a collapse as Hitler collapsed. So they both are interconnected, and Nazism was the ideology which was propagated by Hitler. Now Hitler, as we know, Adolf Hitler was born on the 20th of April in near Austria, and then later on he fought the First World War from the German side, and how he became the undisputed Chancellor of Germany and again dragged Germany and the world into the Second World War, and again also was responsible for the millions persecution of millions of Jews around the world, or that is rather in Europe. Alright, so let us understand and talk about what this chapter is all about. The first segment here you can see talks about the story of Helmut. As you can see the heading here, story of Helmut. Now in the NCERT, in the beginning of the chapter there is a story given about Helmut. His father and his mother are discussing something, that is the Central Powers have lost the war, Second World War, and the Allied forces are now almost about to overtake Germany. Now he is fearing, that is Helmut's father is fearing, that what atrocities they as Nazi officers they had committed on the Jews and other people in Germany. Now the same will be repeated on them. Now he is very tense, and then finally and Helmut, he is a small boy and he is listening to all this conversation. Now after that, one day he spends with his family, that is Helmut's father. वो अपनी पूरी family के साथ एक पूरा दिन गुजारते हैं खुशी खुशी, and then finally वो अपने ऑफिस में अपने आप को शूट कर लेते हैं. Now Helmut इससे इतना डर जाता है कि वो आने वाले बहुत टाइम तक, सालों तक वो अपने घर का खाना ही नहीं खाता. क्यों? क्योंकि उसको लग रहा था शायद उसकी मदर उसको पॉइजन कर देगी. सो ये थी स्टोरी ऑफ हेलमट. नाउ Nazism and the rise of Hitler. Now first of all, this chapter starts with, that is the Germany, or Imperial Germany rather, was defeated in the First World War. ठीक है, फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर हार गया, एंड उसके बाद वहां पे एक रिपब्लिक फॉर्म हुई विच इज नोन एज वेमार रिपब्लिक. दैट इज व्हाई वी स्टार्ट द चैप्टर विद द हेडिंग हियर इज द बर्थ ऑफ द वेमार रिपब्लिक. नाउ इन द अर्ली इयर्स ऑफ द 20th सेंचुरी, दैट इज जर्मनी फॉट द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर. 1914 से 1918 तक ये वॉर चली alongside the Austrian Empire, and the Ottoman Turkish Empire was also on the side of this Germany and Austria-Hungary, and against the allies, that is England, France and Russia. Russia, as we remember from the second chapter, that Russia left the war in between, that is in 1917, as there was Russian Revolution which had occurred, February Revolution. All resources of Europe were drained out because of the war. Germany occupied France and Belgium. This is the starting, and but unfortunately allies strengthened by the US entry later on in 1917 won, defeating Germany and the Central Powers in November of 1918. At Weimar, it is a place at Weimar, the National Assembly, क्योंकि अब Imperial Germany तो खत्म हो गया, that is the monarch had abdicated, stepped down. The National Assembly वो मिली और establish करा एक democratic constitution with a federal structure वहाँ पे establish हुआ. In the German parliament, deputies were now elected on the basis of universal adult, equal and universal votes cast by all adults, including women. तो यहाँ पे women को भी voting rights मिल चुके थे in Weimar Republic. जर्मनी लॉस्ट इट्स ओवरसीज कॉलोनीज बिकॉज हार गया है, तो उस पर अगेन चीजें इंपोज हुई. दैट इज वील बी लर्निंग इन द नेक्स्ट पोर्शन अबाउट ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्सेल्स. वॉर गिल्ट क्लॉज उस पर लगाया गया, दैट इज ऑल अदर नेशंस कंसिडर्ड जर्मनी टू बी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द वॉर. दैट इज जर्मनी के कारण ही सारी लड़ाई हुई है और जर्मनी को ही अब इसका सारा खामियाजा भुगतना पड़ेगा. दैट इज जर्मनी को ही सारी रिकवरी देनी पड़ेगी, बाकी नेशंस को भी. एंड हेल्ड जर्मनी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द वॉर एंड डैमेजेस. The allied countries suffered. द अलाइड आर्मीज ऑक्यूपाइड राइनलैंड इन द 1920s। तो अब जर्मनी पे ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्सेल से बहुत सारे सैंक्शंस लग गए एंड उसके कारण जर्मनी की जो कंडीशन है वो और खराब होती गई। नाउ इफेक्ट्स ऑफ द वॉर, फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद इफेक्ट क्या हुआ एज ऑन कंप्लीट यूरोप एज वेल, दैट इज सोसाइटी पे क्या इफेक्ट हुआ? सबसे पहला ये था, द एंटायर कॉन्टिनेंट वॉज डिवास्टेटेड बाय द वॉर, क्योंकि पहले, इससे पहले अ वॉर ऑफ सच एक्सटेंट हैड नॉट बीन विटनेस्ड बाय द वर्ल्ड, the first world war, and after that again second world war, which was again much more deadlier than the first world war. That is in terms of the number of people who died, in terms of devastation or the destruction which was caused. Now this war had a impact psychologically as well as financially, ठीक है, mentally and financially भी cripple करा इसने nations को. The guilt and the national humiliation जो German was carried by the republic, क्योंकि republic, that is the Weimar Republic, had to sign. The Weimar Republic had to agree to the clauses of the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles. तो इसलिए जनरली जो नेशनलिस्ट थे जर्मनी में वो इसको रिस्पॉन्सिबल मानते थे कि इसी के कारण हमने सरेंडर की सारी कंडीशंस को एक्सेप्ट कर लिया एज इट इज। was financially crippled by being forced to pay, that is the republic, compensation. जो सोशलिस्ट थे, कैथोलिक्स एंड डेमोक्रेट्स, ये सपोर्ट करते थे वेमार रिपब्लिक को, सपोर्टेड द वेमार रिपब्लिक, एंड दैट इज व्हाई मॉकिंगली उनको मजाक में चढ़ाने के लिए नवंबर क्रिमिनल्स कहा जाता था, ठीक है, इन जर्मनी बाय द नेशनलिस्ट। द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर लेफ्ट अ डीप इंप्रिंट ऑन यूरोपियन सोसाइटी एंड पॉलिटी। सोल्जर्स वर नाउ प्लेस्ड अबव सिविलियंस, तो अब सिविलियंस की बजाय सोल्जर्स को ज्यादा रिस्पेक्ट मिलने लगी सोसाइटी में, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली द नेशंस realize that if they do not have men who are aggressive and strong, they would not be able to defend their borders. So they need a strong standing army. But unfortunately, और इसलिए मीडिया ने ग्लोरीफाई भी करा, ग्लोरीफाइड द सोल्जर्स लाइफ, उसको काफी मीडिया प्रोपोगेशन मिला इन थ्रू आउट यूरोप कि सोल्जर कितनी अच्छी एक जिंदगी जीता है, बट एक्चुअल रियलिटी बहुत डिफरेंट थी। व्हाई डिफरेंट, क्यों डिफरेंट थी? क्योंकि सोल्जर्स लिव्ड अ मिजरेबल लाइफ इन द ट्रेंचेस देयर। नाउ डेमोक्रेसी अभी भी एक यंग आइडिया था, फ्रेजाइल आइडिया था, ठीक है, तो इतना कंस्ट्रक्टिव नहीं हुआ था, विच कुड नॉट सर्वाइव द इंस्टेबिलिटीज ऑफ इंटर वॉर यूरोप। तो जो यूरोप में इस टाइम वॉर की कंडीशंस थी, तो उन सब में डेमोक्रेसी एज अ सिस्टम वाज नॉट एबल टू फुली एस्टैब्लिश और ग्रो। Now, political radicalism and economic crisis क्या हुआ जर्मनी में? That is the Weimar Republic, the birth of Weimar Republic coincided with the revolutionary uprising of the Spartacist League. अब ये Spartacists were the people who were inspired by the revolution in Russia. Spartacist League on the pattern of the Bolshevik, जो Bolsheviks ने रशिया में revolution लाया था and वहां पे कम्युनिस्ट सोसाइटी की स्थापना करी थी, तो वैसे ही वो भी चाहते थे कि जर्मनी में भी ऐसे एक रेवोल्यूशन हुआ है। बट जो वेमर रिपब्लिक है, उन्होंने फ्री कॉप्स की मदद से इस रेवोल्यूशन को क्रश कर दिया, खत्म कर दिया, ठीक है। और बाद में जो सोशलिस्ट हैं, ठीक है, और कम्युनिस्ट में डिफरेंसेस इतने बढ़ गए कि दैट इज जब हिटलर के टाइम पे उनको साथ में आना चाहिए था, तब भी वो नहीं आ पाए, क्योंकि डिफरेंसेस, ये डिविजन्स उनके अंदर इतने ज्यादा हो चुके थे। सो कम्युनिस्ट, दैट इज दे क्रश द अपराइजिंग विद द हेल्प ऑफ अ वॉर वेटरन्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, जिसको कहा गया है फ्री कॉप्स, एंड कम्युनिस्ट एंड सोशलिस्ट thus became enemies. अब पॉलिटिकल रेडिकलाइजेशन हाइटेंड बाय द इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस की सिचुएशन जो जर्मनी में फेस हो रही थी, कि एक तो वॉर गिल्ड क्लॉज के कारण उसको कंपनसेशन पे कंपनसेशन देना पड़ रहा है, उसको पैसे देने पड़ रहे हैं बाकी नेशंस को भी उनको रीबिल्ड करने की, और खुद को भी रीबिल्ड करना है। तो ये सब एक तरह से बर्डन था जर्मनी पे। इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस ऑफ 1923, जर्मनी रिफ्यूज टू, फाइनली अब जर्मनी ने हाथ खड़े कर दिए, हम पे नहीं कर सकते, एंड ऑल दिस हैड टू बी, रिमेंबर दैट इट हैड टू बी पेड इन गोल्ड, नॉट एनी करेंसी, इट हैड टू बी पेड इन गोल्ड बिकॉज गोल्ड हैड अ स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ वैल्यू। एंड फाइनली जर्मनी रिफ्यूज टू पे। अब फ्रेंच ने क्या करा, फ्रांस ने इनके लीडिंग इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया जो रूर है उसको ऑक्यूपाई कर लिया टू क्लेम देयर कोल। फाइनली ऐसी इमेजेस काफी पब्लिश हुई उस टाइम पे जिसमें जर्मन्स आर सीन कैरिंग कार्ट लोड्स ऑफ मनी, ठीक है, पूरा एक तरह से ठेला भर के पैसा लेके जा रहे हैं और सिर्फ एक लोफ ऑफ ब्रेड खरीदने के लिए। तो पैसे की एज सच वैल्यू नहीं रही। क्यों? क्योंकि जब फ्रांस ने इनका ये रीजन ऑक्यूपाई करा, ठीक है, रूर का रीजन ऑक्यूपाई करा उनके कोल को क्लेम करने के, तो जर्मनी ने क्या करा कि एज पैसिव रेजिस्टेंस उन्होंने अपनी करेंसी मार्क जिस उसका नाम था, ठीक है, मार्क को पब्लिश करना चालू करा, ठीक है, एंड रेकलेसली उसको पब्लिश करते रहे, तो उसकी करेंसी की वैल्यू इन टर्म्स ऑफ डॉलर गिरती गई एंड फाइनली वो it almost became a condition like $1 was equivalent to trillions of marks. So therefore it was a very problematic situation for the people in Germany. The image of Germans carrying cartloads of currency notes to buy a loaf of bread was widely publicized, evoking worldwide, इससे sympathy generate हुई, और इसी के बाद US intervened in between and came up with a DOS plan. डॉस प्लान की ये जो रिपेरेशंस की कंडीशंस है, ठीक है, उनको रिवर्क करा जाएगा और जर्मनी को शॉर्ट टाइम लोन्स दिए गए थ्रू अमेरिका, ठीक है, ताकि इंडस्ट्रीज उनकी एटलीस्ट उनको लोन मिलेगा तो दे आर एबल टू अगेन रिवाइव और कम बैक ऑन ट्रैक. बट ये भी सिचुएशन ज्यादा टाइम नहीं चल पाई. एज वी नो कि यूएस में ग्रेट इकोनॉमिक डिजास्टर जो था, ठीक है, वो हिट, ग्रेट डिप्रेशन जो हिट हुआ, एंड उसके कारण एक सिंगल डे में मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टॉक्स वर सोल्ड एंड सडनली Americans wanted to pull out their money wherever it was invested. So जर्मनी को जो शॉर्ट टर्म लोन्स दिए गए थे वो भी उन्होंने वापस मांगना चालू कर दिया. तो जर्मनी की जो थोड़ी बहुत भी रिकवरी हुई थी वो वापस से खत्म हो गई. और ऐसी ही सिचुएशन, देखो ये सब सारी सिचुएशन जो क्रिएट हो रही है अगेन इंडिकेट कर रही है कि ऐसी सिचुएशंस में काइंड ऑफ अ पर्सन हु इज अ डिक्टेटर और प्रॉब्ली अ पर्सन who promises that whenever he comes to power he will again do everything which is right, और वो सारी चीजों को सुधार देगा, वो एक बदलाव लेके आ जाएगा. तो अभी ये एक तरह से क्या है, रे ऑफ होप था पीपल के लिए, क्योंकि जर्मन्स जो थे उस टाइम पे अनएम्प्लॉयड थे, दे वर इनटू क्रिमिनल एक्टिविटीज एंड दे वर नॉट डूइंग मच, मतलब दे डिड नॉट हैड एनी होप कि क्या हो सकता है आगे. तो ऐसे टाइम पे जब हिटलर की स्पीचेस के कारण उसने लोगों का ध्यान अपनी तरफ खींचा एंड ही वाज प्रॉमिसिंग कि ये लीग ऑफ नेशंस जो एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनी थी उसको भी छोड़ देगा, एंड वापस से जर्मनी की जो प्राइड थी, जो फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर से पहले जर्मन एम्पायर था, ठीक है, तो उसकी वापस से वो प्राइड, उसकी ग्लोरी, फॉर्मर ग्लोरी को रिस्टोर कर देगा. सो दिस वाज द आइडिया व्हिच वाज प्रोपोगेटेड बाय हिटलर, एंड हिटलर प्रॉमिस्ड द यूथ ऑफ द नेशन कि अगर इफ दे आर विलिंग टू वर्क ही विल प्रोवाइड देम वर्क. सो ऑल दिस आइडियाज, एंड अगेन बिकॉज हिटलर वाज सच अ good speaker, orator and a fierce speaker again, and he targeted the Jews especially. तो सारा blame game खेल के उसने कैसे पावर में आया ये अब आगे हम देखेंगे. ओके, इसमें एक और पार्ट है जो, ठीक है, सिचुएशन ऑफ हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन, दैट इज दिस क्राइसिस, जब प्राइसेस बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ने लग जाती हैं, ठीक है, केम टू बी नोन एज हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन, अ सिचुएशन वेयर प्राइसेस राइज फिनोमिनली हाई. इसके बाद नेक्स्ट आपका तो ईयर्स ऑफ डिप्रेशन. डिप्रेशन में क्या हुआ, अगेन वो जब हमने जस्ट अभी डिस्कस करा, ठीक है, दैट इज 1924 से 28 के बीच में सॉ सम स्टेबिलिटी. अगेन दैट वाज बिकॉज ऑफ द इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ डॉस प्लान बाय यूएस, ठीक है, टू हेल्प स्टेबलाइज द यूएसए, द जर्मन companies. The support of short-term loans was withdrawn when the Wall Street Exchange crashed in 1929. A great economic depression started, and over the next 3 years between 1929 and 1932 the national income of USA fell by half. The economy of Germany was the worst hit, क्योंकि वो उसके लोन्स पे डिपेंडेंट था. अब अगर वो लोन्स ही नहीं आएंगे तो वो सबसे ज्यादा हिट हुआ, मतलब दैट वाज इकोनॉमिकली हिट. वर्कर्स अगेन बिकेम जॉबलेस एंड वेंट ऑन स्ट्रीट्स विथ प्लैकार्ड्स. उन्होंने गले में तख्तियां टांग रखी थी और कहते विलिंग टू डू एनी काइंड ऑफ वर्क, टू डू एनी वर्क. Youth indulged in themselves in criminal activities because there was no work as such, and they had to support themselves or their families probably. The middle class and small businessmen were filled with the fear of proletarianization. Now proletarianization is an anxiety, that is क्योंकि अब उनकी जो पास जो अगर बैंक में बैलेंस भी है तो as such उस वैल्यू, दैट इज करेंसी, क्योंकि कोई वैल्यू नहीं बच गई, तो अब जब वैल्यू नहीं बच गई तो उनका जो बैंक में पैसा रखा हुआ है वो कोई काम का ही नहीं है, तो उनकी भी हालत वैसी उन्हीं लोगों जैसी हो जाएगी जो अनएम्प्लॉयड है या सड़कों पे है. सो एंजाइटी ऑफ बीइंग रिड्यूस्ड टू द रैंक्स ऑफ द वर्किंग क्लास और अनएम्प्लॉयड. पॉलिटिकली ऑल्सो वेमार जो रिपब्लिक थी, ठीक है, वो अपने आप में उसके खुद ही इनहेरेंट कुछ डिफेक्ट्स थे, दैट इज वाज फ्रेजाइल. द वेमार कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ड्यू टू सम इनहेरेंट डिफेक्ट्स मेड इट अनस्टेबल. तो इसलिए वेमार रिपब्लिक भी एज सच काफी स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट नहीं फॉर्म कर पाई, एंड अगर स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट फॉर्म हो पाती तो शायद प्रॉब्ली हिटलर का राइज ना होता. मेड इट अनस्टेबल एंड वल्नरेबल टू डिक्टेटरशिप्स. अब दो पॉइंट्स इसमें थे. पहला था कि प्रोपोर्शनल सिस्टम ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन. तो प्रोपोर्शनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन के कारण कभी भी मेजॉरिटी में कोई ग्रुप आ नहीं पाता था, एंड दे वर ऑल हैड टू फॉर्म अलायंसेस एंड कम टू पावर. तो अब अलायंसेस में हमेशा प्रॉब्लम रहती है कि देयर इज ऑलवेज अ एरिया ऑफ इंस्टेबिलिटी इन्वॉल्व. व्हाई? बिकॉज कि अगर एक पर्टिकुलर पार्टी या ग्रुप का उस अलायंस में फायदा नहीं हो रहा या नहीं दिख रहा उनको फायदा, तो प्रॉब्ली दे कैन पुल बैक देयर सपोर्ट. सो अनदर एक और था आर्टिकल 48. अब आर्टिकल 48 अगेन जो वेमार रिपब्लिक से प्रॉब्ली इमरजेंसी की जो पावर्स है वो हमने भी अपने इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में बोरो करी है, ठीक है, फ्रॉम द वेमार रिपब्लिक. आर्टिकल 48 विच गेव द प्रेसिडेंट द पावर टू इंपोज इमरजेंसी. अब ये इमरजेंसी किसी भी सिचुएशन में लगा दी जाती थी, इंपोज कर दी जाती थी, बिकॉज दे हैड टू कंट्रोल थिंग्स, एंड सस्पेंडेड सिविल राइट्स एंड रूल बाय डिक्री. सो दीज वर द टू डिफेक्ट्स ऑफ द वेमार रिपब्लिक. सॉरी, ओके. नाउ अब हाउ डिड हिटलर और हिटलर राइज टू पावर? Hitler, as he was born in 1889 in Austria and spent his youth in poverty. He wanted to become a painter and also enrolled himself or wanted to get into the Vienna School of Art, but he was rejected from there. Finally, he joined army during the First World War, acted as a messenger in the front and became a corporal and also earned medal for his bravery. But while he was recovering, he had received a bullet shot wound, and while he was again recovering, he learned that Germany had lost the war, that is the First World War, and he with that news he was devastated. And later on Hitler joined a small group called the German Workers Party in 1919, and later on he himself became the leader of the organization. That is, he took over the organization and renamed it the National Socialist German Workers Party, which came to be known as the Nazi Party. In 1923, he planned to seize control of Bavaria. That is, he wanted to march to Bavaria and then later march to Berlin and capture power, like how probably Stalin had done the seizure of power in erstwhile USSR or in Russia, and capture power. But he was again tried for treason, and later on he was released. And during this time only he wrote his book Mein Kampf or My Struggle. Now, during the Great Depression, Nazism became a mass movement. Why? Because people are already jobless and homeless, and they do not have much to do, and they have seen the way the democratic governments of the Weimar Republic has performed, and they have lost all interest and hope in that. Now and here comes Hitler, who acted as the Messiah or the savior, or he portrayed himself as the Messiah of the German people, and that he was there to protect them and again restore the German people's pride in their nation. And that is why people supported him, and by the starting of the 1930s, Hitler's party emerged as the single largest party in their Reichstag, that is their parliament, and later on he was called to take the power. After 1929, banks collapsed or businesses shut down, workers job lose कर रहे थे, middle classes were threatened with destitution, and in such a situation नाजी प्रोपोगेंडा स्टेड होप्स ऑफ अ बेटर फ्यूचर. तो नाजीज ने जो प्रोपोगेंडा करा कि हम सब सुधार देंगे, ठीक है, एंड फाइनली पीपल वर अट्रैक्टेड विद दिस. नाउ these are some of the qualities of Hitler. Probably you can see here, Hitler was a powerful speaker, orator, and his words moved people. ठीक है. In his speech he promised to build a strong nation, undo the injustice of the Versailles Treaty ने जो injustice करा है German people पे, and restore the dignity of the German people. He also promised employment for those who are looking for work and a secure future for the youth. He promised to weed out all foreign influences जो भी है जर्मनी में, and resist all foreign conspiracies against Germany. Hitler started following a new style of politics, and his followers held big rallies and public meetings to demonstrate support in his support. According to this was also Hail Hitler, that is the Nazi form of salute, and the use of swastika from our Indian this thing. According to the Nazi propaganda, Hitler was called a Messiah, a savior, as someone who had arrived to deliver people from their distress. तो जर्मनी के जो लोग हैं जो इस डिस्ट्रेस में हैं उनको बचाने के लिए हिटलर आया है. That was propagated by the party. Here you can see how probably the rallies were conducted, Hitler being greeted at the party congress and this is the form of salute. You can see Hail Hitler. And Nuremberg rally 1936, you can see the amount of people who are there with the again swastika, that is sign. Here again see the amount of people who are gathered there, and that is how his power and his stature as the supreme leader is shown to the people. All right. Now, as soon as he came to power, he started destroying democracy. The very steps through which he climbed to power, that was through democracy, and finally he destroyed that. The destruction of democracy. President Hindenburg offered the chancellorship on 30th of January 1933, the highest position in the cabinet of ministers, to Hitler, because this party had emerged as the single largest party in Reichstag. The fire decree of 20th February 1933 suspended civic rights like freedom of speech, press and assembly that had been guaranteed by the Weimar Constitution. Now, अब fire decree क्या हुआ? There was a mysterious fire which broke out in the German Parliament, and now many of the people believe that ये हिटलर ने शायद आग लगवाई थी ताकि वो अपने जो भी उसके अगेंस्ट में है उनसे बदला ले सके. अब इसके नाम पे इसने लोगों का कॉन्फिडेंस जीता और लोगों को कहा कि जो जर्मनी के खिलाफ है, जो भी साजिश कर रहे हैं उन्होंने, और वो नहीं चाहते कि जर्मनी तरक्की करे, आगे बढ़े, तो इसलिए उन्होंने पार्लियामेंट में आग लगवा दी. और ऐसा कह के उसने लोगों से उनके फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच, प्रेस एंड असेंबली, जो सिविल राइट्स थे वो छीन लिए. एंड इसके पीछे हिटलर ने अपने जो भी उसके ओपोनेंट्स थे, पीपल हु क्रिटिसाइज्ड हिटलर्स पॉलिसीज, वर ऑल रिमूव्ड. Then on 3rd of March 1933 उसने what Hitler did, he passed the famous Enabling Act and took all the power with him, passed which established dictatorship in Germany. He could now even overrule the parliament. The state took control over the economy, media, army and judiciary. तो सब state के control में आ गया. Apart from the already existing regular police in green uniform and the SA or the stormtroopers, now these included the Gestapo secret police, which again was involved in spreading the Nazi ideology and punishing those people who were against or the Nazi ideology. State police, and they were given all rights. They could shoot on sight and they could kill people, and there would be no trials for them or no hearing for them. That they will not be questioned why they had killed someone. The SS, the protection squads, criminal police and the security service were all put into place. Now, he also planned that what he had promised, he actually delivered also, but then again his intentions were something different. Now, reconstruction of the economy that was given, economic recovery was assigned to the economist Hjalmar Schacht by Hitler, who aimed at full production हमें करना है, जिससे क्या होगा, full employment generate होगा through a state funded. तो state fund कर रहा है इस प्रोग्राम को, state funded work creation programs. तो जिससे हम फुल प्रोडक्शन करेंगे, और फुल प्रोडक्शन करने के लिए हमें फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट चाहिए. तो अगेन उससे क्या होगा, व्हेन पीपल आर एम्प्लॉयड दे विल हैव इनफ मनी एंड अगेन दे विल अगेन पुट दैट मनी बैक इन द इकोनॉमी. सो दैट इज हाउ प्रॉब्ली रिवाइवल वुड बी डन. दिस प्रोजेक्ट प्रोड्यूस द फेमस जर्मन सुपर हाईवेज जो है ऑटोबान्स प्रॉब्ली, एंड द पीपल्स कार दैट इज द फॉक्सवैगन. हिटलर रूल्ड आउट द लीग ऑफ दैट इज पुल्ड आउट हिमसेल्फ आउट ऑफ द लीग ऑफ नेशंस इन 1933. राइनलैंड जो ऑक्यूपाई करा था उसको वापस से रीऑक्यूपाई कर लिया 1936 में. ऑस्ट्रिया को अपने साथ इंटीग्रेट कर लिया, ऑस्ट्रिया एंड जर्मनी को साथ में कर दिया अंडर द स्लोगन वन पीपल, हम लोग एक लोग हैं, एक एम्पायर को बिलोंग करते हैं और हमारा एक ही लीडर होगा, और वो लीडर कौन है, अडोल्फ हिटलर. शास्ट ने एडवाइस करा था हिटलर को कि आप अभी भी हमारी जो इकोनॉमी जो ग्रोथ है वो फ्रेजाइल है, कभी भी बिखर सकती है, ठीक है, स्टिल इन अ वेरी इन्फेंट स्टेज, सो बेटर नॉट गो इन फॉर again militarization and other things. But still Hitler was not the person who would listen to other people. So Schatz advised Hitler against investing hugely in rearmament as the state still ran on deficit financing. But Hitler saw this as the only way out of the problem Germany was facing, कि वो war करेगा, दूसरी countries को occupy करेगा, उनके resources को occupy कर लेगा, तो again Germany would revive. Now, what is the Nazi worldview about seeing the things? Many of this is there in the book which is written by Hitler, that is about Mein Kampf. उसने अपनी आइडियोलॉजी को काफी क्लियर करा है, एंड ही हैज टारगेटेड वन कम्युनिटी, दैट इज ज्यूस, एंड ही वाज रिस्पांसिबल फॉर किलिंग ओवर 60 lakh Jews in concentration camps. Nazis are linked to a system of belief, एक belief system था, and a set of practices जो वो follow कर रहे थे. According to their ideology, there was no equality between people. तो लोग equal है ही नहीं, ठीक है. There is a racial hierarchy which exists, and in इस racial hierarchy मतलब एक ladder like structure है, ठीक है. और इस ladder like structure पे सबसे top पे कौन बैठा है, जो है जर्मन नॉर्डिक आर्यंस, जिसको प्रॉब्ली हिटलर बिलोंग करता था, या मेजर जर्मन्स थे. जो जर्मन नॉर्डिक आर्यंस हैं ये सबसे टॉप पे है, एंड सबसे लोएस्ट इस पे अगर आएंगे जो भी है तो वहां पे है ज्यूस. तो दीज आर लाइक, अकॉर्डिंग टू हिटलर, दीज पीपल वर लाइक रोडेंट्स, ठीक है, एंड द सर्वाइवल डिडंट इवन मैटर. द ओनली थिंग मैटर वाज जर्मन नॉर्डिक आर्यंस. सो बिटवीन पीपल बट ओनली अ रेशियल हायरार्की एग्जिस्ट करती है. रेसिज्म ऑफ हिटलर वाज बोरोड फ्रॉम थिंकर्स लाइक चार्ल्स डार्विन एज वेल एज हर्बर्ट स्पेंसर. तो इनकी आइडियोलॉजी से इन्होंने बोरो करके अपने तोड़ मरोड़ के अपने हिसाब से इसने बनाया. आर्ग्यूमेंट ऑफ नाजी वाज सिंपल. द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट रेस वुड सर्वाइव एंड द वीक वंस वुड पेरिश. द सर्वाइवल ऑफ द फिटेस्ट. द आर्यन रेस वाज द फाइनेस्ट हु रिटेन्ड इट्स प्योरिटी, became stronger and dominated the world. The other aspect of Hitler's ideology related to the geopolitical concept of Lebensraum, that is living space which has to be provided to these German Nordic Aryans, the pure people. Hitler intended to extend German boundaries by moving eastwards to concentrate all Germans geographically in one single place. So that was the concept or idea of Lebensraum, that is creating better living spaces for these German Nordic Aryans. Sorry. Next is कैसे उसने ये establish करा अपना racial state step by step. That is, Nazis came into power and quickly began to implement their dream of creating an exclusive racial community of pure Germans. They wanted a society of pure and healthy Nordic Aryans under the euthanasia program. उन्होंने क्या करा, जो Helmut's father had killed or had ordered the killing of a lot of people, condemned to death many Germans who were considered mentally or physically unfit. So he wanted people, those who are, even if they were Germans, but if they are physically or mentally unfit, they also should not live. He only wanted people who are healthy. Germany occupied Poland and parts of Russia, captured civilians and forced them to work as slave labor. Jews remained the worst sufferers in Nazi Germany. Hitler hated Jews based on pseudo-scientific theories of race which he had created. That is, German Nordic Aryans are at the top of the racial hierarchy and Jews are at the bottommost. From 1933 to 38, the Nazis terrorized, pauperized and segregated the Jews from schools, from societies. They were segregated and again later on sent to concentration camps, compelling them to leave the country. Now the racial utopia. Genocide and war became two sides of the same coin. On one side the war is happening and inside the country Jews were being massacred in huge numbers. So they became the two sides of the same coin. Poland was divided and much of the northwestern Poland was annexed to Germany or taken over by Germany. People of Poland were forced to leave their homes for the and properties for the German people who were arriving there. Members of the Polish intelligentsia were murdered in large numbers. Polish children who looked like Aryans or who had features of Aryans were taken over from their parents and given to German parents, were forcibly snatched from their mothers and examined by race experts who would establish whether they had features of Aryans or not. Now, youth in Nazi Germany. How did the youth do in Nazi Germany or during Nazi Germany? All right. Hitler was interested in the youth of the country. Why? Because if youth could come to respect Hitler and his ideas, obviously he would have a huge fan following. And as well as soldiers and people, that is the youngsters who would be ready to die for Hitler. Schools and were cleansed and purified, or cleansed and purified. I am sorry. That is, they were cleansed of the Jews who were there. schools were cleansed and purified of the Jews and Germans, and Jews were not allowed to sit or play together. तो उनको वहां से segregate करना चालू करा. In the 1940s, Jews were taken to the gas chambers where they were killed in huge numbers. Introduction of racial science to justify Nazi ideas, that is, textbooks were rewritten and Nazi ideologies were published through this textbooks so that it fits in the mindsets of the youngsters. That is how they were brainwashed. That is, justify Nazi ideas of race, children were taught to be loyal and submissive, hate Jews and worship Hitler. Youth organizations were also responsible or created for educating German youth in the spirit of National Socialism. That is the Nazi ideology. 14 साल की एज पे boys had to join the Nazi youth organizations where they were trained or taught to worship war, glorify aggression and violence, and condemn democracy, and hate Jews and communist, gypsies and other races as well, and all those categories which were undesirable or seen as undesirable in the German Empire, or at that time Germany. Later they joined the labor service at the age of 18 and served in the armed forces and entered one of the Nazi organizations. In 1922, the Youth League of the Nazis was founded, and after 4 years it was renamed as Hitler Youth. All right. Now, even mothers had a special place in Nazism, and the Nazi cult of motherhood suggested that children were told women were different from men. That is, again, there is no common point between males and females. Their roles in the society are completely different. Boys were taught to be aggressive, masculine and steel-hearted, and girls were told to be good mothers and rear pure-blooded Aryan children. That is, they had to ultimately become mothers and rear pure-blooded Aryan children. Girls had to maintain their purity of the race, distance themselves from Jews, look after their homes and teach their children Nazi values. But all mothers were not treated equally. Now, honor crosses were given to the women to produce more children, to increase the population of real German Nordic Aryans. उनको bronze cross दिया जाता था if they had 4 children, silver for 6 and gold for 8 or more children, and even they were given concessions as well in departmental stores and other places. Women who maintained contact with Jews, Poles, Polish people or Russians were paraded throughout the town with shaved heads and blackened faces, and placards which were hanging around their necks saying that I have sullied the honor of the nation. तो इस तरह से उनको घुमाया जाता था पूरे शहर भर में शायद. ऑल राइट. आर्ट ऑफ प्रोपेगेंडा. अब किस तरह से ये प्रोपेगेंडा को यूज करते थे अपने फायदे के लिए, एंड किस तरह से मिसलीडिंग वर्ड्स अगेन दे वर आल्सो यूज्ड. नाउ नाजी टर्म मास किलिंग एज स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट. मास किलिंग करने जा रहे हैं और उसको नाम दे दिया स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट. फाइनल सोल्यूशन जो जूस के लिए था, ठीक है, यूथेनेशिया जो डिसेबल्ड को मारने के लिए था, सिलेक्शन एंड डिसइंफेक्शंस नेम थे चेंबर्स के जहां पे लोगों को ले जाया जाता था और वहां पे गैस रिलीज कर दी जाती थी, एंड दे वर किल्ड इन ह्यूज नंबर्स. इवैक्यूएशन मेंट डिपोर्टिंग पीपल टू गैस चेंबर्स. गैस चेंबर्स वर लेबल्ड एज डिसइंफेक्शन एरियाज, जहां पे आपको डिसइंफेक्ट करने ले जा रहे हैं, बट एक्चुअली में वहां पे वो उनको मारने ले जा रहे थे. एंड लुक लाइक bathrooms equipped with a fake shower heads. Nazi ideas were spread through visual images, films, radio, posters, catchy slogans and leaflets. तो हर तरीके से advertisements के through Nazi ideas were spread among the German people. जो Orthodox Jews थे were stereotyped, उनका मजाक उड़ाया जाता था, stereotype कर दिया था उनको, and marked and were referred to as vermins, that is rats and pest. The Nazis made equal efforts to appeal to all the different sections of the population. They sought to win their support by suggesting that Nazi alone could solve all their problems. That is, जो problems Germany face कर रहा है वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ Nazis ही solve कर सकते हैं. And now, what were the kinds of probably crimes which were committed by them against humanity. That is ordinary people and the crimes against humanity. Now, probably you might have read about the diary of Anne Frank. Okay, if you haven't read that book, probably you can read that book, or probably you can find a movie also on that to understand like what atrocities were faced by Jews during that time. One of again a very good film is Schindler's List. That also you can probably see on how or what happened to Jews during the time of Nazi Germany. And probably one more, I guess, A Beautiful Life is also a movie which again talks about the times of this Nazism at the time of Hitler. Now, people started seeing the world through Nazi eyes, okay, and spoke their Nazi language. They felt threatened क्योंकि कोई आगे बढ़ के आ भी नहीं सकता, because everyone was threatened for themselves also and for their own family members. Now they felt hatred and anger against Jews and genuinely believed Nazism would bring prosperity and improve general well-being. Now Pastor Neumel protested an uncanny silence amongst ordinary Germans against brutal and organized crimes. तो ऐसा नहीं है, कई लोग इसके खिलाफ खड़े भी होना चाहते थे, but they were crushed and crimes committed in the Nazi Empire. Charlotte Berard's book called The Third Reich of Dreams described how Jews themselves began believing in the Nazi stereotypes about them. Now, this was used as 6 in the maths when we write number 6. Now, this was used to create a stereotype for Jews. That is, the nose of the Jews resemble the letter 6. So that is how they were stereotyped. They had beards and other things. और इस तरह से उनका मजाक बनाया जाता था, और खुद इतना मजाक बनाया कि जूस को खुद को ये फील होने लग गया कि हाँ, शायद मेरी जो नाक है, मेरी नोज है, वो 6 नंबर की तरह ही दिखती. Now knowledge about the Holocaust, कैसे हमें इसके बारे में जानकारी मिलती है? That is, जब war end हुआ and Germany was defeated, while Germans were preoccupied with their own plight, the Jews wanted the world to remember the atrocities and sufferings which they had to undergo during this time. They had endured during the Nazi killing operations, also called the Holocaust. मतलब Hitler wanted to completely wipe out Jews probably from this earth. When they lost the war, the Nazi leadership distributed petrol to its functionaries to destroy all the evidence or incriminating evidence available in the offices which would show or showcase that Nazis had ordered killing of Jews in such huge numbers. Now this is from Pastor Neumel. That is, first they came for the communist, and I was not a communist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the social democrats. I was not a social democrat, so I said nothing. So I did nothing. Then they came for the trade unionist, but I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, but I was not a Jew, so I did little. And then when they came for me, there was no one left who could stand up for me. So that is, he is describing the condition what probably a common man faced. Now these are the diary of a young girl by Anne Frank. You can see Denmark secretly rescued many of their Jews from Germany, and in such rescue, this was probably the boat which was used for the purpose. This last slide, you can see the rise of Nazi in a short this thing probably. Okay, the timeline, Reichstag, that is the fire which took place, then the emergency decree, then the elections enabling act, then banning all other parties, the night of long knives, death of Hindenburg, and the rise of Hitler as the supreme chancellor of Germany, and how he led the world into again one of the most devastating wars probably people had witnessed at that time, that is the Second World War. Now this brings us to an end of the chapter, that is one short video on Nazism and the rise of Hitler. Thank you so much.